Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Attack on Titan Season 2 episode review. This one's going to be for episode 11, which is titled Charge. Overall, I'd say this was a solid episode without being anything particularly amazing or notable. There are for sure some very strong moments, but at the same time, I felt it also suffered a little bit like, not last week's episode, but the one before that, where there was a lot of dialogue that didn't really mean all that much. Of Ymir and Krista talking at the very start of the episode. It's just what's going on here? Because to me, that whole dynamic at this stage is just Ymir cares about Krista, Krista cares about Ymir, and it's causing issues for everyone just because of whatever's going on here. We don't really gain any sort of understanding for necessarily what's really going on here. So I didn't feel too highly about that scene, but on the other hand, there were stuff like everyone getting on top of Reiner and basically John and Connie basically primarily talking to Bertolt, who's being covered up by Reiner, and just basically getting across how could you do this, the other characters addressing the betrayal of Bertolt and him really kind of suffering as they're kind of laying all this on him and talking about how they were comrades in the past, and him being forced in the end to kind of burst out that no, it was true, and then by the end of the episode, someone had to do this to get blood in their hands. So ultimately what we're looking for, I think, to give that extra meaning is what mission are they trying to accomplish that involves them doing all of this? Why is it so important that they seemingly destroy everyone within the walls or whatever? That's, I think, a huge thing that's missing at this point in time, which means that it's just this situation of just, it feels like Reiner and Bertolt, they basically say, they were forced to do this, but you can't really put all that much on it because we don't know why they were forced. So I think that's been the problem more or less since this reveal with Reiner and Bertolt, of just it seems pretty clear that they're not just going to give us a full reveal about what exactly is going on, and because of that it's kind of hard to really get behind these guys as villains or kind of try and feel what level of sympathy it's trying to be got across. But it was definitely a nice scene just to have some of those other characters point this out to Bertolt. And then equally another really good scene in the episode was Armin talking to Bertolt later on, acknowledging Erwin's sacrifice and just this is kind of what he's going to have to do to get the situation where he needs it to be, of just basically targeting the fact that Annie was a member of their team as well. Bertolt clearly cares about Annie. Let's talk about how we have her captured and how we've been torturing her for these past couple of weeks, and I like how that was what kind of made Bertolt kind of lose his cool, kind of temporarily lose track of Eren, and kind of come at Armin. Basically, it was a really good speech that just got across that Armin is kind of being forced into this situation where, in a way, he's developing into kind of somewhat of a leadership position. Maybe he can't do all the action stuff, but in terms of the trying to get the correct goal, he's definitely willing to kind of go as far as Erwin is in some of these situations in terms of what he needs to do, and so on. So I did like that scene with Armin, as kind of Mikasa of course came in, and I think Mikasa in this episode was interesting. I still think the problem with her as a character is just fundamentally that okay, she cares about Eren and she's doing everything to protect him. I get that, and it's in part because of what Eren's mother kind of said, to always protect him. But it's such a character defining trait of her that it's kind of hard to really get behind her as a character, because that's kind of all she is. And especially here, once again, her getting injured in an attempt to get Eren back and kind of being seemingly out of the fight for maybe the next episode, it's becoming a little bit frustrating, and I don't think some of these character arcs for these characters are being done all that well. In that I still have hope for Mikasa going forward, but I think as skilled as she is, I don't think she's a particularly amazing character necessarily. She's just kind of, really skilled. It is about kind of all there is, and obviously is part of our key kind of friendship group that we have here with Armin, Mikasa, and Eren. But I think in this episode, it's like, okay, she did some cool things, and that stare that she gave Bertolt through the gaps in Reiner's fingers was really, really kind of well done. Just in terms of like when Mikasa is in like full battle mode, she is like terrifying and getting that across. But obviously, seemingly, I suppose getting like broken ribs or something like that by the end of the episode was an interesting thing to happen. But yeah, I think just overall, I kind of ended this episode being like, okay, some pretty cool stuff happened, but it really didn't impress me as much as, say, like last week's episode did. Because again, I think last week's episode, what it had going for it was that at the very least the Ymir backstory gave a hint as to something kind of greater happening. The best that we got here was kind of, I think it was Ymir, or was it Bertolt, just pointing out the fact that, things outside the walls aren't as bad as you think, but at the same time, what she said after that was just kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, because there was no statement given about, like, wait, all everyone knows outside the walls is just that there's Titans out here. What on earth are you trying to say? That was kind of a bit of a problem, so... I think the show suffers obviously from being exceptionally vague in all of this stuff that's going on here. Reiner and Bertolt, like, what their, like, their goal was in the beginning, what their motivation is. What exactly is going on with, like, Krista and Ymir, I think is just, like, a bit all over the place at this point. It's, I think, really weird at this point to kind of be going into, like, episode 5 with, like, our main like, the fourth or fifth episode with our main character just a captive, and everyone's trying to get him back, and he's not necessarily playing a role, like, as a character within the episode. So I think that's they have characters in a lot of kind of frustrating positions, and unless there's a decent amount of reveals going forward, I'm not entirely sure about how I'm going to feel about this season by the end. The other thing that happened in this episode was, I suppose, Erwin's kind of big tactical move of just basically leading the full-on charge of, like, don't focus on killing Titans, let them follow you, and leading them head first into the path of Reiner and everyone. And in the process, kind of, during the fight, him getting his arm bitten off and seemingly being, like, killed, taken away by the Titan who bit him. But still, while he's being taken away, demanding them to kind of charge onwards. It was this huge intensity as, like, the military police are, like, pointing out how, like, crazy, almost suicidal the scouts are. It was a really cool leadership thing that I suppose ended up kind of spurring Armin on to do what he ended up doing. But Erwin comes back by the end of the episode, and he's missing his arm, of course, but is still able to seemingly get Eren back. And then the big key point at the end of the episode is that the Titan that's coming for the injured Mikasa and then Eren, who's on the ground, is the same Titan who ate Eren's mother in, like, the first episode. So a notable Titan here. I don't really think there's anything particularly, like, powerful or necessarily strong about this Titan. It's just the situation that they find themselves in up against this Titan is a big challenge, in that very clearly this is where Hannes' big moment is going to be. Can Eren, can Mikasa do anything against this Titan? And the question is this Titan going to kill anyone else? And then who's going to kill this Titan? But at the same time, that is the cliffhanger for the second last episode, is, like, interesting. And unless, like, this Titan is revealed to be, like, a Titan shifter, it's going to be like, okay, revenge. But at the same time, if it's not taken by, like, Eren, what does it necessarily mean? So I'm really just unsure going into the last episode, in that I really don't know what point they're going to leave off on. And it overall, I think, is going to leave us asking the question of, like, why was this season only 12 episodes? I suppose there is the potential for reveals, but it just feels like, as much as a decent amount of stuff has happened this season, the pacing has also been a little weird. in the sense of like we've now had like 2-3 episodes of just like characters on the run. Prior to that, it was just on horses going out to search the walls. Then we have the reveal and the initial fights. It's just like, what exactly is this arc as such? There's definitely some frustrations, I think, going on here. And this episode for me just represented, kind of with this entire season, what the strengths and weaknesses have been. The strengths have been a little bit of extra development for a lot of the other characters, but also highlighting some of the show's main weaknesses, in that I think a decent amount of the main characters are not particularly strong as characters. Eren primarily, it just is like, he's the main character because he's the main character, but I don't think he's being presented in any way like strongly or anything like that. Mikasa, I think, doesn't have a lot to her character. Armin, I think there's actually a ton of potential with whatever they're doing with him. But I think the successes again are like Reiner Berthold suddenly becoming much more interesting because of what's happened. Hannes being here, depending on what he does in the next episode, what happens, could be interesting to see him maybe step up. But I think the show, I'm very worried going into the last episode that it won't be a solid ending point for this season, and potentially going into what could be another really long break before more Attack on Titan. This perhaps isn't the best point to be at, but yeah, I'm pretty much going to end the video there. Sorry if I came across as overly negative in this one. It's just, I think this episode is good. It's just, I don't think what the show necessarily needed for the second last episode of the season, so I'm kind of left disappointed because of that, and not massively excited going into next week's episode. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. Did you feel similarly to me, or were you impressed by a really exciting episode, or what? But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.